Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. Each week, She Rebel Radio brings you insights and advice from women entrepreneurs who transformed their prestige prisons into daring entrepreneurial success stories. Now, here is your host, Lulu Minns.
So I would love to know what your intentions are this evening. In the chat box, if you can type up anything that comes up for you. So I'd love to know what energy you're going to bring to this call, to this group of women that are coming together to talk about why entrepreneurship is the new women's movement, why women's entrepreneurship is the new women's movement. So I'd love to know what energy you're going to bring to the call. So just type in a word, don't overthink it, allow your intuition or whatever comes up for you to kick in. And I'd also like to know what it is that you need to receive from this webinar today. And again, just allow a word, a feeling, whatever comes up for you, and to type it in the chat box. It really gives me a good feel for what it is that you need today, because that's what I'm here for. It's what Claire is here for as well. And we want to make sure that you leave this call what you need. Claire, in terms of energy, I hope to bring people some inspiration to generate new ideas. Oh, they're all coming in now. Can't keep up. Joe's bringing post yoga vibes. Glad you're out. Intention, authenticity, and freedom. Kareth, today has all been about trusting my own feelings. Karen, empowerment, community feeling. Mo, new ideas, sense of community. Vicky bringing positive energy. So we seem like we're all in quite a positive space considering what's happening, which is great. Reconnecting with starting up a business and keeping positive. Yeah, really important at the moment. Intention, creativity, to learn more and connect with female entrepreneurs. Amazing. Feels like a special time in more ways than one to move some of our women's entrepreneurship online. Yes. Just want to get new ideas and meet new people. Lovely. Creativity. Agility, perfect. Well, to kick off, ladies, thank you so much for sharing and continue to use that chat box and connect with each other, etc. But I just wanted to say, to kick off, a massive thank you to you all for being here. I know I've personally had feedback, and I know Claire has as well, in terms of how overwhelmed almost everyone is feeling with the amount that is out there online, in terms of you should be doing this, and this is how you work from home, and listen to this and listen to that. So it's an honour to have you here and for you to give your time to this call this evening of why women's entrepreneurship is the new women's movement. I know many of you know me, but I just wanted to introduce myself and also to introduce our guest expert, Clare Griffiths, as well. So for me, I'm an award-winning coach and advocate for women, helping women find freedom from prestige and more meaning and significance, which is usually within their own businesses. I'm the host of She Rebel Radio, and I know many of you are avid listeners, so thank you so much for that. And I was a lawyer in a previous life for 11 years, practicing criminal defence as a litigator, and I left over 5 years ago. I was given gardening leave, and I left the office on 10 weeks paid leave with my boxes and bags of shoes and various things that I could take from the office. And I do feel like in the last week or so, the rest of the UK has joined me in being sent home from work and really not knowing what's next, and there being a real level of uncertainty. So there's some degree of me feeling like I've been in training for the last 5 years to provide support and hold space for women experiencing that uncertainty, but trying to find a way forward and some degree of opportunity within that. So it's a real honour to be with you this evening. And my intention is to open a really empowering space for you all this evening to change the conversation to one where we can open up some opportunities in a way for female entrepreneurship, and to change maybe some perspectives for you, and to be supported by Claire as well. And Claire is an award-winning entrepreneurship educator, our favourite entrepreneur educator, as I like to say, and she's the founder of the Thrive Effect, which is a social entrepreneur movement. I've got emails popping up. Which is there to inspire women, to give women knowledge and to connect women and create the networks that we need to be successful and to thrive in business. So it's amazing to have you here, Claire. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, good. Thanks for inviting me, Lulu. So I know some of you in the list I can see, but I don't know everyone. So as Lulu said, I'm an entrepreneurship educator. Work in higher education to support the next generation of entrepreneurs, and I specialise in entrepreneurship and particularly innovation in small business. And I also am the founder of the Thrive Effect. Yeah, so we support female founders and women in business to build. We give them the inspiration and the knowledge to build a business that lasts.
Yeah, amazing. And we're going to give you some more details about dates and things that are coming up at the end of this call. So to give you a little running order of what we're going to be talking about, and there's going to be plenty of time for questions at the end, the first thing I'm going to be looking at is why women are feeling trapped, stuck, unfulfilled in positions of prestige. And I know that we have people on the call that are pre-startup, something that you're thinking about, people that are still early startup, a couple of people that are a good few years in. So there is going to be some relevance and some resonant points for you wherever you are at in this journey, because I think pretty much everyone, most of the women on this call have come from some position of prestige already and are trying to move out of that or have already engaged in that process. So we're going to be looking at the trapped and stuck part. We're going to be looking at why women's entrepreneurship is the new women's movement, and particularly what we're facing right now with the pandemic and the change in, well, it was only exactly a week ago, wasn't it, that we had the announcement from Boris Johnson that we were on lockdown this week. And then we're going to be looking at the problems that women face in entrepreneurship, but with a particular focus on the problems that we're facing right now. Claire and I were lucky enough to have a coffee when we were allowed out before this all kicked off to talk about our ideas for some collaboration and this webinar in particular. And whilst the topic, when we were first discussing that, we weren't, we didn't know that the pandemic was going to be so significant as it was. I do feel like the content has actually become more relevant. And I'm going to explain that to you this evening, why I feel that is. And then we're going to tell you about some dates that are coming up, some more support throughout April. If anyone wants to book a call with me to talk about how I can support you moving forward in 2020 by way of my mastermind, I'm going to tell you about that at the end as well. So ladies, looking at those positions of prestige and why women are feeling unfulfilled, trapped by and burnt out by those positions of prestige. If you are in that space right now, do let us know in the comments. And if you have been in that space, please do let us know in the comments. I know that I had a real saying in my last few years as a lawyer that the corporate suit was suffocating me. I literally felt like I couldn't breathe wearing that suit that I was so proud of when I was 22, marching off to court and feeling important and all of that I really felt suffocated and trapped by it. And that feeling was really strong within me before I could even kind of articulate that was how I was feeling. I think I thought I was just putting on a bit of weight or something like that, but it was just that real trapped feeling. And what I wanted to show, I know Claire's done some fabulous slides for her part. I've got one. You're quite lucky to get any slides from me, I have to admit. But I was going to say, speak to any of my clients. I do loads of workbooks and lots of audio trainings, etc. I'm just going to share my screen with you and close this down. I wanted to share with you Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm just going to share my screen. Is anyone familiar with that? Then let us know in the comments. And let me know if you can see that. I'm just going to open the chat box. Can you see that, Claire? Yeah. Perfect. Usually this is within a triangle. And what I wanted to share with you this evening is how this ties in with women and the women's movement and what we've kind of been battling for over the last 100 years in particular, which you can see at number 4 there, esteem and prestige. And we've seen in the whole 20th century, women's suffrage, the suffragettes, the fight for the vote, to enter the workplace as well. My particular interest, obviously coming from a legal background, has been, back in 1920, etc., we were arguing within law that women were people. believe it or not. And it was ruled that we were not deemed to be people to enter that profession. And when we look at that, that wasn't that long ago. That was only 100 years ago. So particularly the last 100 years has really been about women reaching esteem and prestige, which we've seen, women entering the legal profession. I think there are now more girls going through law school and, achieving the academic accolades needed to do that. But before that, we can see physiological needs, basic needs, food, water, safety needs, love and belonging in between that, which again, for women, that was achieved via marriage. As we know, that was the thing that women were told. You don't need education, you need to get married, and then you get your safety needs met, and you get your love and belonging met, and you can create the community that you want, etc. So we've really been battling through all of that this last 100 years. And we are still, in a lot of ways, looking at the esteem and prestige in the hierarchy of needs, which, is really about achievement and having the label of lawyer or banker or those kind of roles. We've still been fighting for equality within that. But what we don't hear being talked about very often is actually what comes above that, in the top of that triangle, which is self-actualization. And whilst we as women have been keeping our head above the parapet, as it were, in the world of prestige, squeezing ourselves to fit into a world that I often say is designed by men for men, men have often been busy self-actualizing, which I'm going to tell you more about what that actually means in a minute, and many of you might know. But because those needs have been met for them much earlier than it has for women, men have had the opportunity to self-actualize much more than we have. And we've seen it's been Women's History Month. That was the initial reason that I launched and wanted to do this webinar. And we had International Women's Day with the argument, the hashtag each for equal. But again, the each for equal often is still about us fitting into esteem and prestige, rather than us actually stepping forward into self-actualization. And we are in many ways behind in the world of self-actualization. But what I wanted to ask you to all consider this evening, that the 21st century that we're in, the 20 years that we're into that, believe it or not, I know many of us feel like 1995 wasn't that long ago, is actually about leadership and entrepreneurship. And that is why I'm just going to close this off. That is why women's entrepreneurship is the new women's movement, and the way that we can fully self-actualize. Because those of us being within and coming from those positions of prestige, it's very hard to self-actualize in a world created by men for men. It's very hard. I know I had, and I left because quite toxic work situation, etc. I think I put a post, feeling like the cage birds that was singing. I felt caged. I couldn't spread my wings. I couldn't actually fully self-actualize and express myself in that position. In fact, I was told quite a few times just to tone it down and rein it in. And I read something recently, that women in positions of prestige are damned if they do and doomed if they don't. And that resonated with me totally. So damned if you do speak up, but doomed if you don't. You're not going to climb the rank anyway. So I know that's resonating. Lots of yeses there. Yes, Rachel, totally agree with this. Prestige, competing for the job title and pressure, because it felt it was the normal thing to do, but only since starting my business have I started to stretch, yes, to self-actualization. And it can feel harder than we realise because of the conditioning that comes with positions of prestige. And I think the conditioning, particularly for women, because we've had to ask for permission to enter into that world and play by the rules. And women are doubly punished if they don't play by the rules and deemed to be troublemakers, etc. So it can feel really difficult. I didn't know if Joe might have been putting your hand up, but you might have just moved your arm there. So ladies, self-actualization. fullest expression, highest potential, highest purpose, highest psychological development of you. And the real key to it is mastering you and focusing on who you are at your best, your zone of genius, how you can step into that. And the biggest obstacle to that is ourselves, firstly, and also other people, comparison to other people, because your only job is to do you and be you. And again, with corporate and prestige, it's becoming like everybody else, even the suit, look like everybody else, dress like everybody else, behave like everybody else, be like everybody else. And self-actualization is actually stripping all of that off, and going and being you. And there is a real, before the pandemic and what's been happening, but we've seen the women's movement ramping up, because there was a real calling and need for women to stand in our power, but also reclaim our worth. Because patriarchal systems and structures, and I know that word is loaded politically, and I don't like to use it sometimes, but sometimes it's necessary, has relied upon the diminishing of women and our worth. So it can feel very difficult to reclaim that fully by being yourself, particularly if you've been rejected by positions of prestige for doing that, which put my hands up to that. That was definitely me. Karen said, I was told to rein it in by another woman, and I've seen that happen to so many women. Yes, absolutely. We must lift as we rise. Mo, I was always called bossy and loud in corporate life. I was offered coaching to tone down my style, to not self-actualize, to just tone it down. Which I was also asked to go to a human resources training or something, which was to tone me down apparently, as well. And that in a nutshell is the work that I do with my clients, to help women fully self-actualize and to step into that. So I'm glad that is resonating. Vicky, I don't think it worked. What didn't work? Did you not see the slide? Did anyone else not see it? The slide, is that? Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks. No, it definitely didn't work. And I know some of the partners, etc., that I used to work with do follow me on LinkedIn, and they do like the odd post. It definitely didn't work. But it was me realising actually that I would need to tone down to fit into that, into the partnership model. When I realised that was actually what was required, that's when I stepped away. So, can I just ask, Karen, that really resonates. I find it hard to find my own voice and be authentic. What is my own self-actualized thought and what's come from the man's world? Yeah, it is. We've been super conditioned. We actually carry, from our own personal experiences, we carry it collectively and also ancestrally, down the feminine line. The things that women should be seen and not heard, etc., etc., etc. So don't underestimate how we carry that, but we can totally work through it. With what we're facing at the moment, what I wanted to share with you is that we haven't seen anything like this in our lifetimes. I think we're all aware of that. And we haven't had a crisis to this level since World War II. Our grandparents, for most of us, involved in that in some way. But what did happen in the Second World War is that women's liberation was pushed to the forefront. There was no choice. The rules had to be broken because women were needed in the workplace. And I actually see a very similar thing here, but not us reaching the level of prestige, but actually stepping up into the self-actualization. We know we're stronger when we do that together. And the reason that I see that is because the rules are already being broken right now. Home and work, there's now no divide between that. And women have been fighting for that and talking about that for quite some time. That carries its own problems, and we talk to Clare about that. But there is no longer any separation between work and the home. And that is something that women have needed massively for a long time. Secondly, business models need redrafting, totally redrafting, because things are going to be very different after this worldwide pandemic. And thirdly, we need more human connection, listening and empathy than ever before. And that is a very natural skill set for a lot of women. And it's also a skill set which has been called soft skills and things that are not deemed as important. I don't know about you, but I was never told at school that I had great listening skills, I was great with people, that I was massively intuitive, any of that stuff, because it wasn't deemed as something that was important at all. Because again, we've been accepted into the education system. There are problems, of course, and there are immediate ones, and we want to, address that on the call today for what anyone's experiencing right now. But Claire, I wanted to kind of ask you, what problems have you been coming across, with female entrepreneurs and what we're facing right now with, caring responsibilities, etc.
Yeah, thanks. Really interesting introduction, and thanks for setting the context, Lulu. It's fascinating. In terms of the current challenges, I would say what I'm encountering is women are facing 4 in particular at the moment, and this is based on a recent meetup I hosted last week. And things that are coming out of that were challenges of time management. So like you say, people are now working at home. So having discovered they're able to set up these businesses, and everyone's been brought back to the home and now are having to revisit their role within the family and within the house. And what I'm worried about is the impact this will have on female entrepreneurship next year. So if you look at the stats from previous years, you can see that it's not, the numbers aren't great. There's still a lot of gender inequality between the number of men setting up businesses and building businesses and the number of women. And I think that's going to be even worse next year once this pandemic's ended. But in terms of the challenges I'm finding women facing are the time management. So having to work from home, but then also having this burden now, if you want to call it a burden, of childcare responsibilities or caring responsibilities. I know not all women have children, but that's coming up a lot in conversations I'm having with female founders. So I'm a bit worried that we're almost, having gone into this level of like self-actualization, we're now going to be stepping back a bit. And so I think no one's really looked at the pandemic from a gender lens point of view. And I think the research that will come out like in the next year, even if it's just the business population statistics from the government or something from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, some of the larger reports about entrepreneurship. It's going to be really interesting to see how this pandemic has affected the number of female-led startups and those that are already in business and then maybe having to tone things down or manage other commitments.
Yeah, a big concern of mine has been, and showing you the hierarchy of needs just there, and this fits into it, Claire, as well, is that at the moment, everybody, regardless of gender as well, our safety and security need is being shaken, right? I think we can kind of all accept that. Everyone's going, oh my God, actually, am I going to be able to pay the bills and have food on the table? And that's everybody across the board. My concern with that, with women, is that is more familiar to us than men at a collective level, because historically, if we didn't have a man that we were attached to, we didn't have that shelter and food and all of that stuff. So as women, on a collective level, we recognise that more, that fear. And with that, Claire, as you said, the love and belonging, the childcare, that automatically, as women, we automatically take that burden, in inverted commas, that is something that we've got to address, over partners, sometimes, etc. So there is a real risk there. And I've been talking about this week, like self-securitizing, securitize yourself, regardless of what's going on outside of you, which I've had to do as an entrepreneur, full stop, because there's a lot of uncertainty as an entrepreneur, generally speaking. But
yeah, so that was one of the big challenges that came up. One of the common themes that came up last week during the meetup, it was this the challenge of time management. And feeling that overwhelm and trying to work out how to manage and juggle all these different responsibilities. And then from a business perspective, other things that came up were to do with marketing, like how to market yourself during the pandemic, as a business, and then things around pricing strategy, and then also this overwhelm of learning opportunities. Now everyone's at home. But the one that I'm really concerned about is that time management, because I think that's probably the hardest to fix, in the sense absolutely. That we're all self-isolating at the moment. The children, if you do have children, are at home rather than at school.
I know a client posed to me, what do you do if you suddenly not got the space? And then a lot of people have suddenly got all the space. Either way, it can affect productivity and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. So what do we need to be doing in terms of, is there anything else you want to share about problems, or do you want to move on to what we can do to innovate?
I'm happy to move on. Yeah.
So what can business owners be start doing to innovate, pivot, shift, and change with the, as the tide has changed and will continue to do so, to kind of leverage what they do know and what they are doing?
This is where I could bring in my slides if you want, Lulu.
Yeah.
Because what I want to do, just to give a bit of context, is we're not going to go back to the way things have been. Basically, for me, I see life and business is going to be redefined permanently. So what I'm seeing every day are really upsetting stories of businesses that are going under. I'm also hearing, particularly from a lot of female founders on a kind of personal basis, whose businesses are struggling, or they've lost sales, or they've lost commissions. And all their responsibilities have changed, and so now they're having to juggle, like we said, all these like childcare responsibilities. And so in terms of trying to overcome these problems, one thing that has been talked about quite a bit in I don't know if you followed like all the articles on LinkedIn and things, is this the power of innovation, and how we can maybe respond to some of these challenges that we're encountering by innovating within our business. So what I wanted to do was just maybe go through some slides to just let people know a bit about what actually innovation is, whether they're pre-startups or startups or trading, whatever their state of their current business or their business that they're aspiring to set up. Now is the time to innovate, but I just wanted to kind of break down some misconceptions about what innovation is. So is that all right? No.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. And whilst you're setting that up, I was going to say as well to everyone on the call, that women have 75% of the economy. We make 75% of all the spending decisions. So imagine a world owned by more women, female-led businesses, and what that would mean for spending, and where the money would be spent, and on what businesses. Mm-hmm. I'll hand over to you, Claire.
Okay, so what I thought would be useful was just really, really briefly, I'm not going to turn this into some massive academic debate, but just talk very briefly about what innovation is, but then bringing it to the relevance of what it could mean to you and your businesses. So whether you're thinking of starting up a business, my message would be you need to start thinking creatively about that, about how you can be different from other businesses entering the market. And then for those of you that are already in business, I just wanted to raise the awareness about areas where you could potentially innovate in your business, and I'll talk through the benefits of that as well. So I'm just going to share this now. Before I do, I just wanted to really briefly though say what my favourite definition is of innovation, because it's such a massive word and we read a lot about it in the media, and there's so many businesses that are saying, oh yes, we're the most innovative corporation, blah blah blah, but they don't actually know what they're talking about in terms of what actually is innovation. So for me, innovation it's about introducing something new or introducing something different to what you're already doing. It's as simple as that. And the quote I've got here is my favourite one. It's just like simply 5 years. It's innovation is something different that has impact. So this could be really simple. It could be you introducing some kind of a new process or something new to your business. It might not be new to the world, but it's new to you, and hopefully that impact that you're creating is of value and of benefit to your business. So just wanted to kind of set that context first.
Yeah, perfect.
And then in terms of innovation, it is very much a process, which for those of you that are maybe going through this the startup process, or you're thinking about starting a business, you'll see this is very much like the lean startup process. It's So innovation is this process of not only generating ideas, but most importantly, like implementing them. And that's a tricky bit. And that's the bit where I think we can all do some more work on now. Now we're in this, facing this crisis, and may need to like introduce new ideas to improve things. But in terms of innovation in the press, what we often see is news about, like Dyson or I don't know, pharmaceutical companies. It's all this big like companies that do a lot of research and development, but innovation can be different. There's different types of innovation, and some of these are very accessible to us as small businesses. So one that we may find ourselves naturally doing, or we may have to do more of now we're in this kind of crisis situation, is just thinking about improving things bit by bit. I'll give an example because everyone loves chocolate, or most people do. Cadbury's Dairy Milk, they spent a fortune on trying to, improving their chocolate bar, their dairy milk chocolate bar, by reducing the amount of sugar in it. But it's just one example of innovation doesn't have to be out of this world. They've basically produced the same product, but with less sugar in the ingredients. So they haven't like completely diversified and created something radically different. It's just very much about they've just made improvements responding to the customer demand.
Can I say with that, Claire, like when I've needed to make pivots and changes in my business, sometimes you just feel it, like it doesn't need to be anything else happening, but you just feel that something's off.
Yeah. And
you can catastrophize and make it into a really big thing, and then it's a small pivot like that, taking 30% out, like a little tiny thing, and it makes a massive difference.
Yeah. So that's probably where a lot of small businesses innovate. Actually, it's probably one of the most common ways in which you can innovate. But like I say, follow your gut and just improve things little by little. Something which people are less familiar with is open innovation. So this is where you accept that you don't have all the expertise in your business, and you bring people from outside your business to help you develop new things or what have you. And I just wanted to give a really simple example. I'm trying to use brands that people are familiar with. So Lego, hopefully everyone's heard of Lego. But what Lego did is, I didn't even realize if they don't create all their ideas themselves. They do have their own like research and development team, but they do invite the public to submit their own ideas, which they want them to be commercialized in some way. And this example of the Beatles' Yellow Submarine is one of those examples. But again, for those people that are maybe starting up now, it could be that you think, okay, how can I bring in the expertise of other people to help me develop something, so it's not just you on your own setting up your business. The third type of innovation, which I think we're all familiar with, is we see this is the one we see most popularly cited in the news, the disruptors. I think we should all be disruptors as we can, but in terms of disruptive innovation, it's all about introducing something which is completely new or shakes up a market or an industry. And the example I wanted to use here was Airbnb. So we all know how much Airbnb has like shaken up the hotel industry. But I think now is the time we could potentially disrupt things. And now everything's like up in the air, and it's time to react that way. But the reason I just wanted to kind of set that as context. But the reason why I think we should innovate is it helps at any time, not just during the pandemic, but at any time. It can help raise your profile, it can help raise your brand, it can help you improve your relationships you have with your customers, you can see. And it does make you more competitive. And depending what you do, it could be that you introduce new revenue streams. So there's loads of benefits to innovating within your business. But I think the reasons why we should innovate, these reasons are even like heightened now we're in this pandemic. So what I wanted to do just for the last kind of bit was just show you the different areas in which you could innovate as a business, whether you're a startup, pre-startup, or someone already trading, and kind of give you some examples of how businesses already are starting to innovate in response to the pandemic. So there's 6 areas which I'm going to whiz through of where business can innovate, and I just wanted to give you some examples of those. So with innovation, we often think of innovation in terms of new product development, but I'm trying to just illustrate it's not the only area where businesses can innovate. We can innovate with our business models, like you said before, Lulu, with processes, i.e. the way we do things, with the people we interact with, And then also in terms of like marketing, how we carry out a marketing campaign, or how we communicate with our clients and our customers, and also how we use technology, which we're all kind of being pushed out. I am anyway, being pushed out of my comfort zone to embrace technology at the moment. So I'm just going to whiz through some examples, and then I thought we could have a good discussion around it. So Brighton Gin, for those of you that are Brighton based at the moment, or from further afield, you may be aware of Brighton Gin, fantastic gin company. But the reason why I've just given an example here is they're obviously making gin, but during the crisis, we have the restaurants, we have the bars, the pubs are shut, and a lot of the shops as well. So one of the things that they've done to innovate, this is really an example of social innovation. So they're doing this to enhance their brand, and most importantly, to benefit other people, is they've started to create hand sanitizer using their 70% alcohol ethanol that they've got from their distillery. So they've actually partnered up with a Lewis-based cosmetics company to create hand sanitizers, which they're now distributing to the socially isolated. So this, I'm not saying this is solving their challenges that they're facing with pubs and restaurants being closed, but it is one example of them essentially diversifying at this point in crisis.
Yeah, and continuing to market Brighton Gin, which is, so well known.
Yeah.
Community. Yeah.
So that's one example. Another example, this isn't really to do with the pandemic now, but what I really liked about this is that right from the start, so if there's any of you that are considering starting a business, right from the start, they've been innovative in their approach. And the reason why I'm using them here is it's a good example of user experiences. So rather than having Threadless, basically, an American t-shirt printing company, and rather than having their own design team of designers, they actually source their design ideas from their community of followers. So they've actually kind of turned things on the head right from the start. They're saving loads of money because they don't have their own design team, but they do reward financially those people that submit designs to them. And basically they have this community platform where you can submit your designs, and then the most popular ones then get printed on their t-shirts, and now other canvases like mugs and jumpers and hoodies and things like that. But what I like about them is right from the beginning, they've kind of turned things on their head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another way, which you mentioned, Lulu, before, is like now's the time to really kind of shake up like business models. But I wanted to give some kind of inspiration. I just wanted to share some business models that I really admire, which I consider to be really innovative. So this example here is from a company called Zypherblatt, and basically they're a co-working space, but also an event space in like one large sitting room. And you can basically go there, meet your friends, meet clients, what have you. But rather than charging in the kind of normal way a cafe would charge in terms of charging for drinks and refreshments, they charge for the amount of time you spend at the space. So they actually charge 8p per minute for you to hang out in their space. So they're another example of people that have like flipped things on their heads to do things a bit differently.
Yeah, I love it.
And Tom Shoes, for anyone who's from America who's watching this, you may be familiar with this company, but they're a global company now. But the reason why I give them an example here is it's a really innovative business model in the fact that you buy shoes from them, and for every pair of shoes that you buy from the company, a pair of shoes gets sent to someone in need. So someone is in need of shoes from the like less developed countries. So, but it's just an example of the importance of partnering with different organisations, or making sure that you're creating something which has value not only to you and your company, but to other people. Closer to home in terms of the UK, the big issue is a social enterprise, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with, all of you. But the crisis, the pandemic, means at the moment that the big issue vendors can't actually spend time on the streets selling their magazines. And so as a company, as a social enterprise, they're having to, in response to the pandemic, they're having to like revisit their business model. And what they're doing now is putting out an appeal for people to pay for a monthly subscription package. So they get their print magazine sent to their door every month. And then obviously some of that funding then goes to the actual vendors and the people that they're benefiting.
Right.
Processes always sounds a bit dry, but this is another area where you can innovate. Example from Chicago. This is a business that all they did in terms of their process was just change the way they do things by reducing the number of hours that they're open for. So they sell donuts, and they said, look, as soon as the last donut sold, we're going to shut the shop. So they didn't actually change their product or anything. They just changed the way they operated slightly. And the impact from there was that they were then able to just generate all this interest in their brand. And obviously there were, as you can see, when we were allowed to stand in queues together, they're all selling lots and lots of donuts, and they always sold out. So it had a really positive impact on their sales.
Yeah.
Another example of a process closer to home in terms of Brighton is obviously during the crisis, a lot of the restaurants are having to change their processes. So they no longer can open to the public, but what they can do is continue running takeaway delivery services, or click and collect ones. And that's an example of one of the Mexican restaurants here in Brighton and Hove. And so they've introduced a new menu during the crisis where you can either get it delivered to your home or you can go and pick it up literally from outside their door, and they'll bring it to your car.
Lovely. Good restaurant.
Another Brighton example in terms of business innovation is Propellant. So some of you may be familiar with this firm. So they're a search firm, a PR agency. But I give them an example here of being really innovative because they've innovated with the people, in this case with the employees that they work with. And the photo here is actually of their dream ball machine. So basically, once you'd spent 6 months, you'd passed your probation period, you would have a dream consultation with the founder. Oh, sorry, not the founder, one of the directors, and she would explore with you a tangible dream that you'd like to achieve. And then it was one way to kind of keep employee retention, because every time then something. The company achieved something, like they achieved a target or they had something to celebrate, they would drop some of these. Basically, it's a dream ball machine. So in each ball, there's a little dream of each employee. And basically, once they had an achievement, they'd made an achievement, they'd drop a couple of the balls, and those dreams would then get turned into reality. But a great way of like incentivizing and engaging with their people. Any of you who are fans of buskers, another way, a good kind of example of companies innovating with their people or the stakeholders is Ethel and Busk in London. So they developed a partnership where they gave each busker, which was part of the Busk in London initiative, which supports buskers in the city, the Ethel, the card, contactless card machine, they gave a machine to each busker. So that each busker could then say, if you don't have any cash, I take card. So just a great example of partnership and how that can then create new innovations. Marketing, I think this is something we're probably all familiar with now that we're kind of embracing the online world, but there's loads of ways we can use technology to market our products or our services. This example here is from the University of Brighton. And what they've done is they've created a chatbot system where, it's a chat functionality where they've got actual real life students answering queries from new applicants, from people considering applying to the university. So there's no one better than a brand ambassador than the people accessing your service. So in this case, obviously the students. But that's a new innovation, something that they've introduced relatively recently as a way to improve their marketing with their prospective applicants. And then the final way in which you can embrace innovation and introduce new things into your business is through technology. This is a bit of an extreme case, but for Lego, another example of Lego, you can now, in a lot of the Lego stores, you can hold up some of the bigger box sets, and then there's a clever camera which picks up a code, and then it produces an augmented reality image of the actual toy once it's been constructed. But just a kind of clever way of how you could use technology. I'm not saying we all invest in hardware to innovate in this current crisis, but yeah, those are the 6 ways in which I just wanted to share where you could potentially innovate, and just really kind of pose that as a way to just ask you food for thought, really, whether people could potentially innovate in their current businesses, or if they're facing if they're facing some other opportunities or challenges, whether they could create a new business, but approaching that from being very innovative right from the start.
Yeah, and I love that you've got that. It's like a small shift, a disruptive shift, or potentially teaming up with someone else. Do you have any particular advice for people with service-based businesses? What's the kind of most common or best way to innovate or shift?
One example I didn't give there, just flicked it through, but one example I've seen recently is obviously a lot of people are moving a lot of their content online. So particularly training providers. I just noticed, put it in the slide, but flick through it. Brighton Comedy Course, for example, they do a lot of their training, which is like really high quality, like 1 day, 3-day workshops, training people how to become stand-up comedians. How to be
funny.
Yeah, how to be funny, and then also how to present with confidence and things like that. So they've had to shift all their training. Now we can't do face-to-face events online. And she's Louise Stevenson, the female founder of the company. She's responded really quickly, I've noticed, to the crisis, and has already created a number of online courses, replacing all her face-to-face events with online training. So bringing stuff, I suppose it's embracing the digital world. I suppose for people who maybe have clients who offer like one-to-one, like coaching services or advisory services. I know you do this already, Lulu, you're ahead of the game. but a lot of people, I suppose, could be embracing Zoom and all these different, using tech as a way to respond to the crisis.
And I think there's a potential as well, to shift in terms of thought leadership when you run a service-based business, to really shift your way of thinking and actually be more bold in content and things like that you're creating, and step into having an opinion. Potential way as well. So lovely, amazing. Anything else that you kind of want to add? I know there's lots of people in the comments resonate particularly with women, in terms of, either losing salary or income in business, with having childcare issues, but it really is, I think, women can really innovate. It's difficult at the moment because kids aren't, at school because they can't be, is how can, women innovate to support, to change the way that we work, because it's definitely needed. That's just a side note anyway. But anything else you want to add, Claire? And then we're going to open it up for questions, ladies. So please let us know if you have any questions of anything we brought up, or any way that you want to innovate, change, shift, pivot your business, anything that you're struggling with in particular with the pandemic. Do let us know in the comments, or unmute yourself. Claire, anything you want to add?
No, I was trying to catch up reading the chat while sort of like thinking and reading at the same time. No, I think my message really is innovation is relevant for everyone, whether you're a pre-startup, a startup, or someone who's running an established business. I've noticed that there's 6 ways in which you can innovate. The 6 ones I've gone through. And if you just take some time out, whether you're the pre-startup or the trading business, to think, okay, what could I potentially be doing differently which could create impact for my business? So people could just maybe, as a kind of a takeaway, just start thinking, and I'm happy to share the slides, start thinking now's the time really to just embrace this. I know we're facing lots of challenges, and some more than others, but now's a chance to try and embrace this challenge and turn it into an opportunity, and be a bit more creative with our businesses. So really that's my kind of message I wanted to get across today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and to really, take a leadership and an entrepreneurial position on it, because, because that's kind of, why we're here really. But in terms of, it is, we, as we've both said this evening so many times, there are a lot of challenges, and particularly, in this first couple of weeks, and that, finding what you need to do to feel secure, even if it's, for me on a daily basis, it's practicing yoga, going for a walk on the beach, and, living in the now, and am I okay today, and is everything all right today? And that's a real skill set as an entrepreneur anyway, because you never know what's around the corner. I'm going to be honest with you. You never know what's around the corner, and there's always, risks to take, and potentially always be asking the questions about how we can innovate and shift and change and pivot and stuff as well. So ladies, any questions? Definitely a time to be creative. Gemma, I know that you had a question that you emailed me this morning, so I can address that in a minute. I'd love to know if any of the other ladies, this is a really good 10-minute opportunity to get either of our help with anything you're facing business-wise, in general, or what it is that you're struggling with as to how that's had a knock-on effect with the pandemic and things like that we're facing. Rachel, good and I would love to know also, and throw it out there as well in the comments, what's been your biggest takeaway from the webinar so far, because that's always good. I always say share your takeaway and it might give a shift for somebody else as well. Rachel, good to see quote from Clayton Christian, disruptive innovation. I think lots of things around the economy will face disruptive innovation. Yes. Wonder, Claire, if you have any views about frugal innovation as a method and its basis in reducing complexity from systems and processes and access to services. This can be hard for small businesses running tiny margins anyway. Can we be more frugally innovative? Question?
Yeah. Shall I go for that now?
Yeah.
I think innovation could be, you could embrace, I don't know what your business is currently, but it could be that you embrace that approach of innovating incrementally. So just making small steps to improvements, or so whether it's transforming something from which has been offline to online. I, for example, have been running a lot of face-to-face events, and then now suddenly having to transfer all those digitally online. It hasn't actually cost me much at all to do that. And in fact, or ironically, I'm actually saving money because I'm not having to pay for venue hire anymore, not having to pay for catering, and yet I'm able to put on more or less a very similar event. So I think there are things you can do with a very low budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, actually, I got recently something from a company called Upcycle that use wasted food products in face scrubs and things like that. It's a great idea. Karen, thank you. As women, this might be our time if we can innovate. Yes, absolutely. And find some time to build and rebuild our businesses to step into greatness. Yes, to create our own systems and structures. Claire, is there a window of time for innovation now, do you think? As in, lots of people have already moved online. I'm still building foundations and I'm just starting to become visible and build relationships. Will I miss the boat if I don't get out there ASAP? Thank you, Claire, for your question. Claire?
So I think we're ahead of the game just being in this webinar. But no, I think the thing to do is, I think the messages are, don't innovate for the sake of it, and whatever you do. You'll never know the true value of that until it's actually happened. So if you think back to the process of innovation I was talking about, you'll never know the actual value of it until you've built and tested whatever you've been wanting to do or introduce. But I don't think you won't have missed the boat, Claire Osborne. I think what you could do now is just start spending time on listening to your current clients if you currently have, if you're currently in business. So listen to your clients, listen to your customers and what their problems are or needs that they're facing now, and seeing if there's anything which you're not doing which could then be which you could then meet those needs with, whether that's introducing new products, new services, or just a new way of communicating with them. So I think just seeing what your clients want, your customers want, and then responding to that rather than introducing something new for the sake of it.
Yeah, and I would say along with that, totally agree, Claire. And Claire, I'm getting confused, is asking, how, and I know that you're early in, as it were, early doors, but just looking at that, how have things shifted for my clients? How is it that what I'm offering is actually even more relevant potentially than it was before? And also, how have things changed for me in the way for my needs and how I want to deliver my business? Because that's a really important thing as well, to serve who it is that you're serving and what they need and how that shifted for them, but actually what's shifted and changed for you with how things have changed, because that's where you get your kind of authenticity with it. I hope that helps. Joe has said, biggest takeaway is to innovate within my field. Yeah, absolutely. Gareth has asked, you mentioned having an opinion. I like the sound of that a lot. Can you expand? Can I expand? Is there anything specific you want me to expand on? Just, in terms of, particularly depending on what your business is, certainly for mine, because it's in coaching and supporting and advocating for women, it is important for me to have an opinion. And to potentially be open to kickback on that, and I do have some, why don't you support men? Or, that kind of stuff. And again, like Claire said, in terms of innovating, maybe don't do it just for the sake of it. Don't have an opinion just for the sake of it. Make sure there's some grounding behind that. But, start somewhere, and then your confidence starts to build on that actually, and as I said, it's a great time to develop thought leadership. So for the podcast, for me, and actually another webinar is going to be around some of this, Cara, so that might, we can go deeper with it. I create something, and then it creates another thing, and that's the thought leadership. It's like there's another thing and another thing and another thing, and you kind of like follow the breadcrumbs, and then you start to create, something that's really valuable for people. But you've got to kind of you've got to take a stand on something, right? And not be vanilla. When you're vanilla, attractive to everybody and attractive to nobody, right? You've got to go for the people that resonate. Vicky,
I think on that note, Lulu, as well, totally agree. And build on to not be vanilla, build on, just really get clear, what are your core values as a person, and then also for your business, and really kind of build whatever you end up creating, whether it's a marketing campaign or a new product or a new service. Really make sure that everything you do now truly reflects those values, because I think that's how we're going to stand out in this new marketplace, this new world.
Grit is one of my values, ladies, you might be able to tell. So hence why, and I ask myself that a lot with business decisions that I have, is that aligning with my grit, because that is something I value. Vicky, biggest takeaway, the different types of innovation. I've looked at some options to innovate, but there were ideas highlighted by Claire that I hadn't thought of. Amazing. Do you want to share what, Vicky, or are you keeping it to yourself for now? Liz, I have an online business as a counsellor, so have a real opportunity, but don't have much in the way of time due to being single mum. So the time thing's coming up. Would love to work out a way innovating at this time. Takeaway is to promote more as being female led. Lovely. Love that, Liz. And this time thing, I might do a video on that on Facebook soon. Actually, I'm going to dive into some solutions with that. Elish, if more of us are self-isolating with our families, perhaps it's an opportunity to get them on side and have a deeper understanding of our needs to share the workload at home. Yes, Elish, I love that. It really is for us as women to share what it is that we actually need to be able to self-actualize and to communicate that and be, brave and bold enough to tell other people how it rolls. A great little tip for that actually is getting a journal and writing down. This is one of my favorite tools. Writing down what I'm not available for, and then writing down on the other side what I am available for, which is the opposite. And then you start telling people how it needs to roll. A good way. Rosie, I agree we should be more mindful that as this progresses, our collective psychology will move from fear to acceptance and exploration. Yes, so marketing and innovation should take those responses to change into account. Yes. Hillary, lots of takeaways. Biggest takeaway is to look at the process side of innovation. Amazing. This is something I can offer my clients. Lovely. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Monica. There's so many. Any more questions? You've got a question there, Monica. Thank you. To get some experience, I'm looking to trial the coaching with a few female entrepreneurs who might be feeling overwhelmed to help me develop and integrate into my current business. Any ideas for this, and anyone interested in taking this up? I like that, Monica. Throw it out there for sure. You're wanting some practice clients, is that? I know that you do Shen, NLP, etc. And what I would say as well is use the time to innovate and reach out to people in personal messages and ask, is there anything I can help with? Claire, have you got any comments on that?
Just for that, Monica, and I know Monica, it's all good. Monica, email me separately, and then I can share, if you are wanting some test clients, I could share that opportunity with the community, the Thrive community, and see if anyone wants to take it up. Yeah.
Thank you for being with us. Meg, brilliant presentation. Claire, build on my ideas for the company. I didn't realise that this might end up being a bit of open innovation. Amazing. Gemma, biggest takeaway moving forward, starting an online mentoring course. Absolutely. And Gemma, I know you had a question before saying how can I be aware of my patterns of overworking and staying true to the work that I want to do. And I think as well, with this real shift that we're seeing, including being able to work from home and there not being that divide, and technology and computers have been taking over for quite a while, that there doesn't need to be as much doing as there was before. And I think everybody's going to have some real downloads about that, in terms of spending all the time commuting, going back and forth, and how we can actually condense exploring technology to condense timelines of doing things. So I have a diary that does literally everything for me, so I don't have to think about it. But also on a personal level is checking in with your personal, I need to work hard to make money, I need to put in all the hours to make money. As women, we tend to overdo that to prove our worth because of this self-worth piece, and to start telling yourself new stories about that. If you know that's a particular weakness for you, it's about going back and retraining your mind to tell the new stories, if that makes sense. I don't know if I've got time for all the messages, ladies, because we're going to have to go off in a second. Claire, is there anything you want to add?
Cracky. Anything I want to add? Am I on mute? No. No, I think it's important. I completely get it. We don't have much time. Well, some of us don't have much time to work on new ideas. So it's about, maybe, I think someone mentioned, for example, they're a single mum and they don't have much time. My message would be, just take one idea, maybe first of all, brain dump lots of ideas down on your paper, and then from there, just take one and try and experiment with that. And if you've got a tight budget, because someone else was talking about frugal innovation, just try one of those simplest ideas. So it could be just about incremental innovation, but just see how that goes, and then kind of gain confidence from that, and then maybe experiment with a larger idea next time.
Yeah, it's great. And getting out there and asking your audience and saying, what are you struggling with? What can I help you with right now? Like, this is a great time to get a survey out there. Like, people at home start bored to get a survey out, get your practice clients, as Monica said, do some free interviews with people to see what the problem is and how you can solve it. I know a lot of the women are sharing here, work smarter, not harder, having to embrace the digital world, whether you like it or not, it's got to be done. I spent half an hour getting my mum on Zoom yesterday, hilarious, and then had the top of her head on the family Zoom chat. So it definitely, writing down what I'm available for and not available. It's such a powerful tool. You will find, ladies. Oh, thank you so much. Amazing. Thank you so much to Claire. I'm just going to share with you before we go off. I will send an email out tomorrow so you have all of these dates. The next Thrive Effect. Claire, do you want to say when the next Thrive is?
Yeah, so we have meetups twice a month, which are now taking place digitally, online. Our next one is on Tuesday, the 14th of April from 6 till 8. And and it's an opportunity to learn from a guest speaker. This time it'll be Meg Fenn, who's been in this session. She'll be talking about how to market your business during the pandemic, how to market effectively.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Claire. Also, I have coming up on the 14th of April, but it's going to be at 8 p.m. after Thrive, so you can make both, a webinar about what's working online, how to create connection and community online. We're going to be talking podcasts, webinars, and groups. Creating groups online is something I've been doing for 5 years, including, webinars, online hosting. podcast, newer, but it's been successful since it launched September. And I have Alex Bailey from Bailey & French, who is a positive psychologist and human connection expert, who's going to be joining me. So that's going to be 8 p.m. on the 14th of April. Claire and I are coming together again on the 28th of April, so that's 2 weeks after, to host another webinar for you, which is the Business Clarity Clinic, which is Claire's part. And decision making, discovering what kind of decision maker you are in business, which is going to be me doing the second half. So that's going to be a really powerful webinar for you all on the 28th of April. Are we doing 7:30 or 8 p.m?
7:30, I think.
7:30. We're going to do that at 7:30. And it's been a massive honour to have you all here. I'm going to send you an email all with those dates and links that you can connect with all. That's all free support. And if you want to talk to me about how I can support you this year with your self-actualization, then I will pop a link in there. You can book an informal call with me so we can discuss that as well. Thank you so much for being here this evening, Claire. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lulu.
And yeah, let's stay positive, ladies. It's I was going to say we're experiencing a big contraction, and next will be the big expansion of women and moving into self-actualization and changing the way we do business. Of that, I have no doubt. So have a good evening. If Claire and I can help you with anything, just reach out. Really good to have you all. Amen. Namaste. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, Lulu.
Thank you for continuing to join us at She Rebel Radio. But before you go, I wanted to invite you to a free and live webinar of what's working online during the current pandemic. The live webinar is going to take place on the 14th of April at 8 p.m. UK time. And we're going to be talking about how to stay positive, create community and connection online. And I'm going to be joined by our guest expert, Alex Bailey, who has previously been interviewed on the show. And she is the CEO of Bailey & French, a positive psychologist and human connection expert. As we navigate these unprecedented times, we need unprecedented women to step up and lead online. And that includes you. So do join us. You can find the link in the show notes, or just type in luluminns.com/connection. We're going to dive into what's working online, webinars, podcasts, community, how to stay positive, and why human connection, listening and empathy is absolutely key right now. As I said, you're going to have time to ask questions and interact with us live as well. So do join us at luluminns.com/connection on the 14th of April at 8 p.m. See you there.
Thanks for listening to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. She Rebel Radio is executive produced and hosted by women's advocate and coach, Lulu Minns. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. You can find Lulu Minns on Facebook and LinkedIn at Lulu Minns, and on Instagram at LuluMinns_biz. Until next week, keep rebelling against the rules and designing success your way.